My sister, 7 years my elder, bore the brunt of my parents' resentment. Her adopted status was a constant shadow, darkening their affections. Initially cherished, their love waned with my arrival. Poverty became the backdrop for their favoritism. I ate meat, she ate scraps. Her academic brilliance went unrewarded, traded for a life of labor to support my upbringing. Guilt gnawed at my conscience. I'd squirrel away treats, sharing them with her upon her return from work. She would hold me, tears streaming down her face, whispering that I was her precious little one. Despite the injustice, she harbored no resentment, her love for me a constant, unwavering flame. 10 I became an orphan. Our parents, truck drivers, perished in a road accident. My world shattered, but her arms became my refuge. Relatives, eager to assume the burden of my care, were met with her fierce resistance. No one, she declared, would separate us. She would raise me. And so, I became her child. She was striking, a beauty who could have easily secured a comfortable life through marriage, perhaps even finding a husband to further my prospects. But she refused every suitor. Poverty, she insisted, wouldn't rob us of our dignity. She toiled relentlessly, saving every penny. By the time I reached high school, she had purchased a motorbike, becoming a mototaxi driver, ferrying me to and from school each week. Her beauty, however, became a curse, attracting unwanted attention. Men would hire her taxi, their hands lingering inappropriately. She'd rebuff their advances, but they'd feign innocence, claiming a need for support on the bike. She was trapped. Her business thrived, a cruel irony. Men flocked to her taxi. In our county, where 2,000 yuan was the average monthly income, she earned 5. Each night, she deposited her earnings, earmarking them for my university tuition. She poured her love into me. But adolescence twisted my perception. I found her work humiliating. The whispers, the stares, the cruel nickname motto. Beauty. The rumors that men could touch her freely while riding her motorbike, they shamed me. I forbade her from attending parent-teacher meetings. One afternoon, waiting for her after school, I heard the snickers. "There she is, Moto Beauty," a classmate sneered. Mortified, I fled, ignoring her calls. Glancing back, I saw her watching me, her mouth open as if to speak, the words caught in her throat. She rode away, leaving me to take the bus home. That night, she confronted me. Was I ashamed of her? Yes, I spat, the venom of teenage cruelty surprising even myself. I hate that you let those men touch you. I hate that you come to my school. Tears welled in her eyes. She pulled me close, stifling her sobs, and promised it would be the last time. I could take the bus from now on. Even in her pain, my feelings took precedence. Enveloped in her warmth, I remained blind to my own heartlessness. My reprieve was short-lived. After graduation, we planned a celebratory dinner with classmates. Fearful of being seen with her, I insisted she drop me off in an alley across from the restaurant. A drizzle started. She shielded me with her body, keeping me dry. As we arrived, I saw my classmates embolted. They leered, asking if I had enjoyed the ride. Looking at her, rain clinging to her hair, her body trembling in the damp evening air, a pang of guilt struck me, but the need to save face prevailed. "Yeah," I lied, "pretty soft." Fished out some money, her hard-earned money, and offered it. She stared, speechless. I pressed the money into her hand. Leaning close, I muttered, "Just go. Don't embarrass me." She didn't move. Tears flowed freely, tracing paths through the calluses on her hands, a testament to her years of labor. Her voice cracked, choked with emotion. "So you like touching me? Is that what you tell people?" Shame washed over me. "Isn't that what you do?" I retorted, my voice trembling. The terror of humiliation was overwhelming. Graduation day, and all I cared about was my image. She sobbed, her small frame racked with grief. "I don't care what strangers say," she whispered, her voice broken. "But you have no right." She gunned the engine and roared off into the rainy night. I yelled after her, urging her to slow down, but she was gone. In that instant, the full weight of my cruelty crashed down on me. Consumed by vanity, I'd forgotten her sacrifices, her unwavering dedication to my well-being. Ignoring my friends, I ran after her, desperate to apologize, to beg her forgiveness. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs screamed in protest. I found her, lying broken and still at an intersection, beside a crumpled car. "Sister!" I shrieked, scrambling to her side. The driver, pale and trembling, explained he'd called for an ambulance. He wasn't at fault. He insisted. She'd been crying, wiping her tears, oblivious to the red light. The collision on the rain-slicked road was unavoidable. I held her close, pleading with her to open her eyes, but she remained unresponsive. At the hospital, a white sheet was draped over her. She was gone. The police deemed it her fault. I didn't pursue legal action. She had taught me that even in poverty, dignity mattered. Numb with grief, I brought her body home. Tradition dictated a 3-day wake, but her sudden death meant we could only burn joss paper for her soul for 3 days before a simple burial. Relatives, moved by our plight, offered condolences and practical assistance. They helped me dress her in a new white dress, the one she had always admired but could never afford, always putting my needs before her own. I whispered apologies, confessing my monstrous behavior, crushed by the weight of my guilt. Exhausted, I fell asleep beside her. I woke to a flurry of activity. My heart lurched. The white dress was gone, replaced by a scarlet wedding gown. Her face was meticulously painted, lips a vibrant red. A golden hairpin nestled in her hair. My relatives explained. A wealthy family, whose son had died 6 months earlier, had been a customer of my sister's. Upon hearing of her death, and enamored by her beauty, they proposed a ghost marriage, offering a dowry of 10,000 yuan to secure her as a bride for their son in the afterlife. My relatives, seduced by the money, had accepted. While I slept, my aunts had prepared her for her wedding. Fury consumed me. How could they sell her, even in death, after I had treated her so callously in life? They chided me for my naivety, for failing to grasp the significance of 10,000 yuan. The red dress was on, the marriage was binding. To refuse now would condemn her soul, preventing her reincarnation. I raged, driving them out, screaming that my sister would marry no one. She had died in despair. How could they inflict further torment upon her spirit? My uncle intervened, dispersing the relatives, reminding them that they had no right to interfere in our affairs. He soothed me, pledging his support, and gently changed her back into the white dress. I retrieved the brazier, burning joss paper, watching the flames turn the offerings to ash, refusing all sustenance, just sitting beside her, lost in a vortex of regret. Fearful of the relatives' return, I secured the doors and windows before lying down beside her. Memories of our impoverished childhood surfaced, sharing a single bed, 2 thin blankets. She would always lull me to sleep before quietly drifting off herself. Tears eluded me. I had none left to shed. I reached out to embrace her, but my arms grasped only air. She was gone. She sat at our old vanity, adorned in the crimson wedding gown, poised as a bride. The doors and windows remained bolted. No one could have entered. Then I recalled the relatives' words. The red dress was on. The marriage was inescapable. A terrifying thought gripped me. Had she dressed herself? I swallowed, my voice a choked whisper. Sister. Did you? But the dead don't answer. Her face was pale, lips blood red, eyes closed, her eyebrows still unpainted. The mournful wail of a swona sliced through the silence. Assuming it was the relatives, I stormed to the window. A wave of terror washed over me. Paper figures shuffled towards the house. 2 carried a coffin, another scattered joss paper, while a 4th played the swona, leading the macabre procession. Their faces were stark white, cheeks painted and unnerving. Crimson. The wind buffeted their paper bodies, causing them to sway grotesquely. Their movements were jerky, unnatural, legs lifting high, floating forward before snapping back to pull their bodies along. They halted at my door. We've come for the bride. A high-pitched, nasal voice announced, emanating from the seemingly inanimate figures. Panic seized me. I remembered my uncle's instructions. She's not ready, I called, my voice shaking. The figures remained motionless, their painted smiles chilling in the moonlight. My uncle arrived shortly thereafter, slipping in through the back door. He glanced at my sister, his face grim. He wasn't concerned about the spirit guides, he admitted, but about her lingering resentment. Left unaddressed, it could transform her into a vengeful spirit. And if that resentment was directed at me, I could be pulled into her tormented afterlife. My heart plummeted. Had she not forgiven me? A bitter laugh escaped my lips. She has every right to hate me, I confessed. I'm a monster. If she wants me dead, then I deserve it. My uncle slapped me hard. Don't talk like that, he snarled. Life is a gift. There are ways to atone. Don't throw yours away. He inquired about my day. I mentioned burning the joss paper. He led me to the brazier. I stared dumbfounded. It overflowed with unburnt joss paper, but I had watched it turn to ash. The brazier itself looked pristine, untouched by fire. My uncle sighed. She's rejecting your offerings. She won't accept them. Desperation clawed at me. How could I appease her? Ensure her peaceful passage? I would do anything. He outlined the dilemma, the wedding dress and her unresolved resentment. We had to address the latter first. But for now, we could only wait for the spirit guides to depart. I stood vigil at the window, watching the paper figures below. Periodically they would call out, "We've come for the bride," and I would reply, "She's not ready." The night stretched on, an eternity of anxiety. Finally the rooster crowed, signaling the approach of dawn. As if on cue, the spirit guides turned and retreated. My uncle informed me they would hide until nightfall, returning then to claim their bride. Exhausted, I collapsed onto the bed, gazing at my sister's still form. My uncle shook his head. "No time for sentiment," he said briskly. "We need to take her outside into the sunlight." Confused, I questioned him. The dead, I knew, shouldn't be exposed to the sun. He explained it was the most effective way to dissipate lingering resentment. Sunlight, the purest form of yang energy, would dispel the negative yin energy clinging to her spirit. Determined to ease her passage, I helped him lift her onto a wooden plank and carry her outside. As the sun's rays bathed her face, a searing pain shot through me. My uncle, sensing my distress, patted my shoulder. "Don't grieve," he reassured me. "This is for her own good." The summer sun blazed overhead. I sat beside her, fearing the heat would hasten her decomposition. I wanted her to remain beautiful, at least until burial, until cremation. But something strange began to happen. Perhaps it was the heat, but the faint traces of lividity I had noticed earlier, while washing her body, began to fade. Worried she would dry out, I periodically sprinkled water over her. Each time I did, the lividity receded further, replaced by a healthy flush. Her face, previously pale, now glowed with life, the rouge seeming superfluous. Adorned in her finery, bathed in the sunlight, she looked like a sleeping princess, a regal figure from a bygone era. My uncle, noticing the transformation, expressed his bewilderment. The sun should weaken yin energy, causing her complexion to pale further. Instead she appeared increasingly vibrant. He examined her closely. Her yin energy, he declared, was growing stronger. He urged me to burn more joss paper, hoping to appease her restless spirit. I retrieved the brazier, and my uncle rushed off to purchase more offerings. We worked tirelessly throughout the day, burning the paper money until the sun began to set. My uncle declared it was pointless to leave her outside any longer. We carried her back inside. She looked breathtaking, utterly unlike a corpse. My uncle muttered about the intensity of her lingering spirit, something he had never encountered before. He instructed me to bring the brazier inside and continue burning offerings throughout the night. As I stepped outside, the sun dipped below the horizon. I glanced at the brazier and gasped. It overflowed with pristine joss paper, the very offerings I had just burnt. She was still rejecting me. Frantic, I called for my uncle. He admitted defeat. This was beyond his limited knowledge. He couldn't help her, but he knew someone who could, a master of spiritual matters. He wasted no time making a hurried phone call. 40 minutes later, a stout, neatly dressed middle-aged man arrived, his goatee neatly trimmed, a reassuring smile on his face. My uncle introduced him as the expert, renowned throughout the region for his ability to resolve supernatural occurrences. He clasped the man's hand, addressing him respectfully as Uncle Master, explaining that while his own master was older, he was a junior disciple to this man, sharing a common lineage. The expert entered the house, listening intently as my uncle recounted the events. He shook his head, inquiring about my uncle's master. Upon hearing the name, Zhang Laowu, a former undertaker from a neighboring village, he scoffed, declaring him a charlatan, explaining why my uncle's methods had been so ineffective. My uncle's face flushed with embarrassment. The expert explained that a deceased's refusal of joss paper didn't necessarily indicate resentment. If she truly harbored anger, she would have harmed me the previous night. Furthermore, The increasing yin energy despite prolonged exposure to the sun suggested the presence of a protective yang energy. I questioned how this was possible since yang energy was associated with the living. The expert pondered for a moment, then suggested that my sister possessed exceptional virtue, a righteous energy that persisted even after death. The sunlight, instead of dissipating her yin energy, had amplified it. My uncle, stung by the expert's dismissal of his master, challenged him for a solution. The expert turned to me, his gaze intense. "Would you do anything to ensure your sister's peace?" he asked. "Anything," I vowed. He explained that her reluctance to move on stemmed from unfinished business. Since she could no longer fulfill her wishes in her physical form, he proposed lending her my life force, my inner lamp, to allow her to complete her final task. He directed me to lie inside the coffin. He placed his hand on my forehead. "You and your sister shared a close bond," he explained. "She's familiar with your energy. The transfer should be seamless. But be warned, if she chooses to take your life, you will surely die. Do you still consent?" "I do," I affirmed. "If it grants her peace, I welcome it. Even if it means my death, I owe her that much." The expert sighed, then motioned to my uncle to lift my sister's body into the coffin, placing her on top of me. He instructed me to remain passive. Once night fell, my sister would draw upon my life force. Her body would move, and I must follow her lead without resistance, no matter what she did. I nodded, my resolve unwavering. He placed candles at the head and shoulders of the coffin, explaining they represented the location of my inner lamp, guiding my sister towards it. He then snipped a lock of her hair and instructed me to hold it in my mouth, further familiarizing her with my essence. With these preparations complete, he and my uncle departed, urging me not to be afraid and stressing the importance of being alone. Fear was a distant concept. All I desired was my sister's peace. I welcomed the possibility of sacrificing my life for hers. I had wronged her so deeply. As darkness descended, a chilling breeze swept through the room, penetrating to the bone. The candle flames flickered, and my sister's body grew colder. I held her close, gently grasping her hand as instructed, ready to follow her lead. Then it began. A subtle shift in her weight, a slow stirring. I mirrored her movements, rising with her as she sat up, careful not to disturb her. She glanced around the room. I remained close, holding her hands, sensing her intentions, guiding her frail limbs. The brazier, still filled with the unburnt joss paper the expert had left, burned steadily, the offering stubbornly refusing to turn to ash. I knew this signified her unfinished business. Only upon its completion would she accept my offerings and find peace. She climbed out of the coffin. I followed. She moved towards the bedside table, reaching for it, not to open the drawer but to push it. Her strength was minimal. I stepped forward, assisting her, sliding the table away from the wall. Behind it, a small hole had been carved into the floor. From within, she retrieved a wooden box. Inside lay a bank book. I opened the drawer where she usually kept her savings, a paltry sum I had never bothered to check. 2,000 yuan. The bank book in her hand, however, held over 70,000, and it was in my name. She placed the bank book on the table, then turned back towards the coffin. I followed, lying down beside her once more. She settled back, a look of serenity on her face. I sat up, my gaze drawn to the brazier. The joss paper had turned to ash. She was ready. Tears long suppressed finally flowed. She hadn't resented me. Her lingering concern had been for my well-being, ensuring I found the money, ensuring I had enough for university. I wept, holding her close, my grief overwhelming. Sister. The best sister in the world. My sobs alerted my uncle and the expert. They rushed in, finding me cradling her lifeless body. I explained. The expert nodded, a look of understanding on his face. Your sister was a truly virtuous soul, he murmured. No wonder the sun couldn't touch her. It's a pity you subjected her to such a misguided ritual. Were it not for her righteous energy, her spirit might have been scattered. My uncle's face crumpled with shame. He apologized profusely for his ignorance. The expert shook his head, then addressed me. Your sister is ready to move on, but the wedding ritual has been initiated. Do you consent to this marriage? No, I said firmly. She doesn't know this man. How can I allow her to marry a stranger? I felt that even a ghost marriage should be to someone deserving. not simply a transaction based on wealth. The expert explained that if the intended groom was not a good person, she could suffer in the afterlife, perhaps even becoming a scapegoat for his sins. The afterlife, he explained, held consequences. Virtuous souls reincarnated easily, while the wicked faced punishment, their reincarnation uncertain. However, the marriage was binding. If my sister valued fidelity, she would feel obligated to fulfill the union, her spirit unable to rest otherwise. He asked somewhat awkwardly if she was a virgin. I confirmed she was. Her virtue, he explained, would make this matter even more sensitive. The best course of action was a mock wedding, a charade to appease the spirits. He asked my uncle to obtain the groom's birth date and time. My uncle immediately contacted the relatives. When the information arrived, the expert studied it, shaking his head gravely. This man's energy is harmful to your sister, he declared. A marriage would bring him good fortune at her expense, draining her life force to cleanse his karmic debts. My refusal hardened. I would never condemn her to such a fate. The expert produced a knife, asking for my hand. He pricked my palm, collecting a few drops of blood. With this, he inscribed the groom's birth information on a piece of parchment and affixed it to my back. Tonight, he instructed, the spirit guides will return. Tell them the bride has remarried. Your sister will come to you. With this charm, she won't recognize you. She'll mistake you for the groom. Do not speak. Don't let her hear a familiar voice. It might break the illusion. Remember 2 things. I nodded, my attention riveted on his words. First, he warned, tonight is the wedding night, but you must not consummate the marriage. Even though she's not your blood sister, the union of the living and the dead is perilous. Your sister is beautiful, and the temptation might be strong, but to succumb would mean your death. Don't be fooled by the allure of a romantic demise. Your sister, beautiful as she is a dangerous flower. I assured him I harbored no such intentions. I held her in the highest regard. I would resist any temptation. She was more than a sister to me, regardless of blood ties. The expert, seemingly relieved, continued. The spirit guides serve the groom's family. 2 failed attempts to retrieve the bride will undoubtedly agitate him. He might appear tonight. If he is a good man, he will release your sister from this obligation. But if he covets her beauty, he might reveal his true nature, endangering both your lives. What should I do? I asked, anxiety creeping into my voice. A drop of blood from the tip of your tongue can repel evil spirits, he explained. But it works only once. You must strike your target on the first try. He patted my head. Hold her close, he instructed. Once midnight passes, the ritual will be complete, and she'll be free to move on. He and my uncle departed, explaining their presence might arouse suspicion, hindering my sister's passage. I waited alone by the window. Soon, the mournful wail of the Swona returned. The paper figures reappeared, their movements as unsettling as before. They stopped at the door. We've come for the bride, the shrill voice called out. The bride has remarried, I responded, my voice steady. The spirit guides, their painted smiles unwavering, turned and drifted away. Relieved, I lay down on the bed, waiting for my sister, wondering if the groom would follow. A chilling wind swept through the house, rattling the windows. The locked door creaked open. My sister, dressed in her wedding gown, entered the room. But her body lay still in the coffin. She was breathtaking, her makeup complete, eyebrows perfectly drawn. She approached the bed, her beautiful eyes fixed on mine, then slipped under the covers, a hint of shyness in her demeanor. I held her close, her spectral form icy against my skin. Husband, she whispered, her voice soft and gentle. Did your family deliver the dowry to my brother? I worry the relatives will steal it. Tears pricked my eyes. Even in death, her thoughts were of me. Unable to speak, I nodded. She seemed reassured, snuggling closer. You're my first, she murmured, her voice barely audible. I'm too shy to undress. Will you help me? I couldn't bring myself to comply. I held her gently, refusing to take advantage of her vulnerable state. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with tenderness. I can't accept your kindness without offering something in return, she whispered. My brother is in your care now. I belong to you. Are you shy? I'll do it then. She began to unfasten her gown. I averted my gaze, pulling the covers over her, shielding her from my view. I knew she was beautiful, but I couldn't bear to look felt like a violation. My heart pounded with anxiety. The groom could arrive at any moment. I glanced at the clock. Midnight. Just a little longer. As I held her, the door creaked open again. A man, dressed in a traditional groom's outfit from the Republican era, entered the room. His face was pale. His body gaunt, his eyes bulging from their sockets. He wore a black hat and a large white flower pinned to his chest. He stood silently observing us. Fear tightened its grip on me, but I remained silent. My sister seemed oblivious to his presence. He approached the bed, scrutinizing us. She continued to snuggle against me, and I held her tighter protectively, shielding her from his gaze. The groom stared at her face, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes, then turned and left. Had he gone? Had he relinquished his claim? Uncertainty gnawed at me, but I focused on my sister, holding her gently, careful not to cross the line. Several times she lifted her head seeking a kiss. I gently turned her face away. I was not her husband. Believing him gone, I began to relax. Perhaps he was a decent man after all. 30 minutes later, the door opened again. The spirit guides returned, accompanied by the groom. They lifted us, blankets and all, carrying us outside. My heart lurched. Where were they taking us? They placed us in a freshly dug pit. He had been digging while we waited. They began shoveling dirt onto us, burying us alive. The groom's true nature, driven by his lust for my sister, had finally revealed itself. The dirt piled up, covering my chest, then my neck. I struggled to keep my head above the surface, but the relentless flow of dirt quickly engulfed my mouth and nose. At first, I could still breathe, albeit with difficulty. But as the dirt continued to fall, the air grew thin, my lungs screaming for air. The spirit guides clawed at us, trying to pull my sister away. I clung to her, refusing to let go, even as their sharp nails tore into my flesh, ripping through skin and muscle. My arms, slick with blood, screamed in agony, but I held on. The spirit guides, enraged, intensified their efforts, the dirt falling faster, heavier. Finally, my head was submerged. But I could feel my sister fading, growing smaller, lighter in my arms. Just as the expert had predicted, she was leaving. The spirit guides, sensing her imminent departure, grew frantic. They moved through the dirt as if it wasn't there. Their claws and teeth tearing at me, ripping into my shoulders, my stomach. Pain racked my body, but I bit back my screams, determined to ensure her peaceful passage. I lost count of the bites, the scratches. My body was a mangled mess, but finally she was gone, her essence dissipating, leaving behind a shimmering trail of light, like fireflies dancing in the darkness of the grave. "Sister," I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. With her gone, I clawed my way out of the loosely packed dirt, emerging into the night air. As my head broke the surface, I found myself face to face with a pale, ghastly figure. The groom. Without hesitation, I bit my tongue, spraying the blood onto his face. He recoiled, screaming in agony, his face smoking as if corroded by acid. The spirit guides attacked with renewed ferocity, their claws tearing deeper, weakening me further. Nausea surged through me, and I vomited a mouthful of blood. I couldn't die here. My vision blurred, my head swam, but I fought against the encroaching darkness. My sister had sacrificed everything for me. I had her university fund to protect. I would live for her. If anyone was to take my life, it would be her, and no one else. I dragged myself out of the pit, just as the Swona player lunged, its paper jaws snapping at my throat. I grabbed it, surprised by its lightness. Paper after all. "Damn you," I snarled, biting into its face, tearing it in half. I turned on the other figures, ripping them to shreds, scattering their remains into the wind. The groom, his face partially dissolved, stared at me, a single malevolent eye peering through the gaps in his ruined flesh. I staggered to my feet, covered in blood, and roared, "Come on! You think you deserve her? You're nothing. I'll become a ghost too. And I'll haunt you and your entire family for eternity." The groom hesitated, his single eye wide with fear, then turned and vanished into the night. My strength gave way and I collapsed, barely conscious but determined to stay awake. At dawn, my uncle and the expert returned, finding me slumped on the ground. The expert checked my wounds, finding them miraculously healed, replaced by dark, lingering marks, the imprints of claws and teeth, burned into my skin. These, he explained, were the vestiges of spiritual attacks. They would fade with time, replenished by the sun's yang energy. My uncle, his voice anxious, asked if my sister had found peace. I managed a weak smile and nodded, relieved he helped me to my feet. I limped back to the coffin, kneeling beside her, burning the remaining joss paper. She was finally at peace. But her love had deepened my guilt. She had loved me fiercely and unconditionally, in life and in death. I wept silently. I would atone. I knew I had done wrong, but the one person who deserved my apology was gone. Cherish those you love. Such a simple truth, learned at such a devastating cost. Sister,